Welcome to another episode of Meet the Solution Seekers. As always, your host is me, Dragana, and today I am thrilled to be joined by a technical team lead at Solytic, Mario Santos. Mario, welcome to Solution Seekers.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's very nice to have you with us. So in today's episode, we will cover a lot of grounds. First of all, we'll talk about some leadership values, but also talk about some real challenges in the software industry. Plus, I'm really keen to hear some personal insights about what keeps Mario inspired in his role. So to start with, Mario, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So sharing about myself, I'm from Brazil. I'm married to a lovely woman and father of a wonderful boy. Talking about hobbies, although I was a musician in the past, you can see there is a small instrument there. I don't have many hobbies, but I do love reading about nutrition. About my career. So my career in tech started in 2003, but before that I had other jobs too. And some of which I truly believe they contributed to my leadership skills in tech. My first job as a developer was at a pharmaceutical company, and it's still the most challenging one I had so far, I would say. I had to learn a lot by myself to develop a solution before an event that was just 4 months away. So the schedule was already set even before I was hired. But it turned out to be also the most rewarding job too. Because first, the solution worked really well, and it also won an award from Dell Computers in partnership with a major business magazine. So there was some questions inside the company about if the software was good or not, even though some users was saying, okay, this is helping me to achieve like my goals. Other was complaining about usability and some small stuff. But I mean, it went well. So, and this award was kind of like a stamp to my work. And it also motivated others to start using more and more the solution. So this opened many doors for me inside and outside the company. There I was promoted, and outside I also got a lot of freelancing jobs because at the time, we were talking about 2003, mobile applications were like not so common as we have today, like in Google and app stores. And also there are a lot of companies like seeking this kind of like solution, but no one has actually implemented it properly. And with this award, the article in this magazine, it put some lights on my profile. So other companies were contacting me. So it was really, really good. But this company was not a software development company. Software was not their main business. They are a pharmaceutical industry. So the main focus was to build these kind of products. And then I decided to move on. Then I started in a software development company working for a US-based client. They have some products used to test different kind of hardwares, like routers, switchers, storages, for example, and they want to develop a front-end solution to allow their technicians to easily manipulate these hardwares. To me, this was the big step forward in my career because the team there was very, very experienced. I learned a lot from them. And in my second year there, I got my first chance to lead a project and a small team. So it was like, even though in the beginning I felt a bit insecure, you know, it turned out to be an amazing experience. Everything went well. And this somehow changed the way I was planning my career. I was, in the beginning, too involved with this, how can I say, technical part with the background from the university. And I saw that like as a lead, I could contribute more to the growth of the project and to the company, and also like this interaction with other team members was something that was giving me more joy, I would say. So after that, I worked for 3 other software development companies in Brazil, each targeting different kind of industries. For example, energy, telecom, logistics, this kind of customers and clients, but always as a hands-on leader, managing cross-functional teams of different size, and always heavily involved in designing and implementing software solutions, I would say. And then finally, 2020, I was approved for another hands-on team lead position at Solytic, a company based in Berlin. And although moving out from Brazil, like leaving behind a stable and successful life, could be seen as a risk move. I mean, my parents, my friends, they try to put some concerns about, are you going to start again?
Yeah.
Like a lot of question marks. I saw it as a big opportunity to grow, both professionally and like personally speaking. My wife also liked the idea to try something new, but unfortunately, not everything went as planned. Uh,
Yeah,
after
2020 was an interesting year. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, I'm not saying that it's just on me. Not everything in my life is straightforward, but that year everyone got somehow affected. And after 2 months of preparation, like selling all our personal stuff, leaving our house, like finding a new home for our dogs, the pandemic worsened in Europe. And just one day before I was supposed to get my visa, they called me and say, hey, EU closed the borders, you are not able to travel. And I was like, okay, I don't have a job anymore because I had to quit my previous job to prepare to the move. My wife did the same. We are living with our parents, supposed to be there just like 2 weeks or 1 month, but it turns out that I had to stay. So from March, I got an agreement with Solytic, and then I started working remotely from there, waking up at 5 a.m. every day to follow the working time because of the different time zone. It was tough in the beginning, but then I get used to it quickly. And I even try to keep this routine after, because, I mean, you have more time during the rest of the day to do your personal stuff. But then later in October, the situation in Europe especially improved, and I was finally allowed to travel to Germany. I came first, then my wife after me. And yeah, and since then I'm working at Solytic. Next year, I'll complete 5 years here, and it has been an incredible journey so far. And I'm excited about the challenge and the opportunities ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story and introduction into your career and background. Yeah, I think last 5 years probably didn't start as planned
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, but yeah, I'm glad that you found your feet in Germany. And from what I know, talking to you, you're quite happy now living
Yeah.
there and yeah, raising your family there as well. So Mario, I wanted to cover a couple of things in this podcast with you. First of all, I wanted to talk to you a bit about your principles and values as a tech lead. So, what personal or professional values guide your leadership styles? Because, as you mentioned previously, even before coming to Solytic, you were a tech lead leading cross functional teams. So, what would be those values that you highly regard?
Yeah, I believe that personal and professional values, they should be consistent, at home with your family and friends, or at work with your colleagues. I would say that I'm guided by integrity and honesty, and I try focusing on build good relationship and teamwork to face challenge together. I once read a book that every leader must be model of their behaviors they expect in the others, and I truly believe in that. So, as my father also said that if you're not example for others, how do you expect them to do stuff that you would like to see them doing? So that's somehow how I see myself and how I try to be with my team. And when mentoring and giving advice, I always try to put these values on the table, share with them, and most of the time, I think they kind of got what I was trying to say to them.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, leading with example is probably the best one to show your team. But now, leadership often comes or requires balancing autonomy with oversight. Obviously, as a lead, you need to check on your team what they are doing. So,
Mhm.
how do you manage to strike that balance while also, giving them some sort of freedom and giving them feeling of being empowered and supported?
Okay. Um, yeah, this is a good question because it depends on the type of project that you are working, of course, and the skills you have in the team. Usually, I try to trust my team to handle their tasks, and then I adjust the level of guidance based on the results. For example, if I assign a task for a junior developer and it turns out that he's delivering quite well work, probably I will give him or her more freedom in the next tasks. If there is something wrong, then I will going to spend more time supporting, understanding their decisions to see how I can help. So over time, I learned who can make big decisions and who needs more support. Because I believe that a self-reliant teams let me focus on those who needs more guidance or more important matters, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, very good. And being in a team, usually, team are not made of, well, they are one body, but they are all very different and diverse. So
Mhm.
when it comes to, diversity and inclusion, I believe that, this has to be present within every team to make the team dynamics strong. So how do you foster such environments where everyone feels valued and maybe, able and willing to contribute? Because as you probably know in your experience, some people are shy or some people don't like to come across as the ones to give their ideas, although their ideas might be good. So how do you overcome these challenges?
Mhm. Well, it's not only about like these individuals, but also about like the company and how they see the team as a unit. So fostering a diverse and inclusive team
Mhm,
environment, I think means creating a space that everyone feels first respected,
mhm,
valued, and included.
mhm,
But the goal should not be building a team where diversity is just like accepted, just as
yeah,
okay, this is the way to go. I see this as also a strength that you can have in your team because, for example, at Solytic, we had teammates from 15 different nationalities, and
mhm,
these make a lot of difference in the daily work because first you get like different views for the same problems.
mhm,
uh, you have also different experience. You have uh, a broad, how can I say, set of like perspectives that you can pick and merge when applying the solutions, I would say.
mhm,
And again, I think leading by the example is the key. So when I show respect and I listen to others, I try to understand their personal concerns, how they see the situation at work and sometimes even outside. I think this encourages my team to do the same. And then we work as a unit, understanding that there are differences and they somehow complete each other. So they help us to create a strong foundation as a team, I would say.
mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. So, my background is a background of talent partners. So I collaborate with different businesses within software industry, helping them fill in their open positions and get the best talent that is on the market. So, because you are team leads, you were also involved in recruitment processes. So, how do you approach building and managing your team? So, what are the key qualities for you when you are evaluating someone who would be potentially joining your team?
Okay. Yeah, good question. First, of course, I need to prioritize the technical skills because
Mhm.
most of the time you are hiring someone and you already know what type of tasks they are going to work with. But
Mhm.
I also value adaptability and a collaborative mindset because this kind of was common to my role career. In the first job when I started, for example, I was a PHP developer at the time and I was hired to build a Windows mobile application and I didn't know which tools, which language framework I could use. And it ended up I had to use .NET and Java, and I have to
Mhm.
learn that by myself. So if the position was hiring a developer with that specific skills, I would probably not get the job. At the same time, at Solytic, we had some legacy product written in
Mhm.
PHP, and we decided to migrate it to .NET. So if you just discard the capacity of the PHP developers to acknowledge a new language, a new framework, and solve this problem and migrate the product for the new platform, what would you do with them? So I think
Mhm.
I prefer developers who approach problems by focusing on solutions first,
Mhm.
and then they select the best tools, whether programming languages or frameworks, uh, to get the job done. And I think this is the way I see like the hiring process. But again, depends on the situation. If you have, for example, an outsourcing project where developers will be allocated on a customer and it's a short time project, probably the technical skills will have like a big influence on that. If it's a long-term project where some, I don't know, unknowns needs to be solved, I would rather prefer a developer that shows a very good solving problem skills,
Mhm.
especially if they are up to learn new technologies, new frameworks, and then I think it would be the perfect fit for the companies. At least it what happened in the previous companies I worked at and also at
Yeah.
Solytic.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your insight. Yeah, it's really interesting what you said because it is important to look at the long term and short term, what exactly
Mhm.
you want to build and what you want to do with the team at the time. So once you have team in place, obviously one thing that is important to continue working well as a team is motivation. I believe that's a key to success of
Mhm.
any team that is working on a certain product, especially in the software development. So, how do you keep a team inspired, especially maybe if you have very tough projects or if you have a tight deadlines?
Yeah, keeping the team motivated or motivating people, I would say it's harder than writing software. Uh, it's sometimes depends on the personality of the developers. For example, I worked with some developers who prefers tight schedules and working under pressure because they say they get more focused when they
Mhm.
have less time or when there are limits about like time and scope.
Mhm.
Uh, but other developers will feel that, how can I say, an uncomfortable situation, and they prefer to have more freedom to work, like balancing the time at work and not having too much extra work to do. So it depends on the situation, you know. I try to set some, how can I say, standards to the
Mhm.
team about some trade-offs about you can have some freedom to decide the tools you are going to work, try new, how can I say, ways of doing stuff, even though there is a risk. But at some point you need to stop, and you should go back to the plan to not delay too much. Then when we have these like small agreements, like with the team, individually or as a group, I think when we succeed, I think we should celebrate these small wins, and also reflect about the lessons we learned when things don't go well, because it's not always true that if just because you give them some like flexibility or some freedom, that from the company perspective, what we delivered, what the company expected or the customer expected. So we needed to understand, okay, we gave you guys too much freedom, it didn't turn well, how are we going to do the next time? So this way we can decide how to delegate and what to delegate, and what to expect with the team. And in the end, I believe that having like a team that shares the same goal make things easier to, how can I say, to keep the team motivated. You don't see like individuals working like alone in their paths, especially when they are like working features that others cannot contribute. And when there is something that is not going well, I think the most important is like to show support to them, that they are not alone. And if they fail, they didn't fail as individual. It's like as a team work, something went wrong, and we needed to work together to suppress this problem, like in the next time, basically.
Yeah, I really like the last point that you mentioned, because sometimes when mistake is being detected, it's easy to point fingers at one person. But it's as you said, this is a team project, so it shouldn't be done that way.
Yeah,
If project fails, then it's up to the whole team, not just for down to one person. So
exactly.
being a leader has its own challenges and responsibilities. So especially when you have a big project in mind, and you are put in a position to delegate tasks to different people within the team. So how do you delegate that, or how do you decide whom to give what task, and what do you want to keep on doing for yourself as a leader?
Okay. Yeah, again, it's about how do you see their development over time? When I have like a task that I don't know if the developer has the skill to do, sometimes I try to discuss, for example, with project managers or the customers, what's the deadline, to see how much I can risk on allocating a developer that's not yet experienced on that matter, and with time that I can react quickly to take over the task or to help them closely to finish the task. Because if it's not that if I take all the tasks, I'm going to reduce the risk. It's just that I'm going to get more and more responsibilities, more stuff on my plate, and the team is not going to evolve. It's not going to be more, how can you say, experienced on topics if I always take the most challenged ones to me. So of course I know the strengths of the team members. Over time we get more trust on what they can do alone, what they need more support from me or from other seniors. But the idea is that when you have some time and you can run some risks, we should try to put some responsibilities, especially in the young developers, so they can learn with the time if they succeed or by the mistakes, but also with the, how can I say, the security that we can jump in and help them to achieve the deadlines if they don't succeed. That's how I see this this topic.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially young ones, they do need support. So it is important to know what you can delegate to them, so they don't feel too pressured. Yeah, this is one of the struggle and challenges, I suppose, that leader have to carry. But and there is many others as well. So I'd like to now spend some more minutes talking about challenges that you directly faced as a tech leader. So I know it's always difficult to talk about these things and to be, honest, because yeah, every role has its own challenges and struggles. But can you maybe share with us what was the toughest decision you had to make as a tech lead, and why this was toughest decision?
Yeah, one of the hardest was not renewing the contract of a developer. While the decision was necessary to keep the performance of the team and especially the health environment, it was difficult because there are always someone behind a contract, and this person maybe they have some dependents like wife, child, and when I had to make this decision, I was not thinking about just the contract, just the company, and not only about that person. I was thinking about, okay, who else is going to be affected by that? So it was tough, but at least I would say, peace in mind because I made every effort that was on my hands to avoid this outcome. But it turned out to be how can I say, the right decision for the team. And I think this was the most challenging decision I have had because, again, when it's about software development, some stuff takes some time, but it's not that difficult when you need to deal with like person and things that you don't have control, you don't know well how it's going to be affected by your decisions, especially, as I said, someone that's leaving a company has some relatives, and I really felt really bad in the next days after that. But yeah, I think it's part of my role.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably that is the toughest part of the job. Yeah, letting
Yeah.
someone go. But yeah, as you mentioned at the very start, you always have to have a big picture in mind as well. Although, we are dealing with the people at the end of the day, this is a job that has to be done.
Yeah.
Now, within software industry, it has become a standard that most of developers or engineers like to work remotely or on a hybrid in hybrid environment, and that also brings some of the challenges. So how or what challenges did you have to face in this space, and how have you adapted it?
Well, I can say that remote work actually makes things a lot easier to me because when I was in the office and someone asked for help, basically I needed to, how can I say, to focus on that person and sit together, for example, and I'm unavailable to others while that. At least was not that easy. For example, if I needed to go to a meeting room with someone to discuss a problem, and then someone else needs to talk to me, I cannot just leave and go back to the meeting room. I usually have to ask them to wait. But with this remote work, I basically found a way to multitask my attention to the team. Of course, when something is more critical, we need to have a call. And then by that time, I try to focus more on the person that I'm talking to. But this asynchronous mode where people ask me about uh, questions and ask for support, and I can try to find solutions while doing something else, kind of like help me to address more problems with more people in a good time, I would say. Sometimes, of course, I felt that I forgot to reply to someone because I jumped into another topic and then I forget about that. It's part, but most of the time I saw that it was more, how can I say, a good thing to me. I know that for some companies and some projects, this is not an option. And trying to convince the developers who get used to this working mode to go back, it's going to be challenging. So you need to find, how can I say, ways to motivate people and to show them the benefit, because there are benefits of working in the office with everyone around. Because, for example, some decisions I had to take, we spend like hours through phone calls or chatting, and then decide, let's go to the office, let's draw in the board, and then we find a solution. And it was the best way to solve some of the problems. So I think the challenge is going to be like finding a team that knows how to balance this remote work with some necessity of meeting the office. But if you think about, for example, my work at Solytic, I worked from Brazil with 4 to 5 hours time difference.
Yeah.
So we also had like people working outside Europe, like we have one front-end developer that's from Tunisia. And then after that, when I was able to move to German, everyone was already in this remote work because of the situation. So I kind of like was being prepared for that before I was able to move. But I still believe that the hybrid mode is still the best, because if you only has the possibility to talk to people remotely, you need to have a proper workflow, like to organize yourself to not get lost. And in some situations where you say, okay, it would be nice to meet the person in the office to discuss some matters, especially when it's not about technical issues. So if someone is facing like a personal problem, wants to discuss with you as a team lead some alternatives or ask for your personal opinion, I feel that having these meetings like in person, it's more human, I would say. But it's, for some developers or some companies, this is not an option. They have like offices in different places, so this remote work is the way to go. And I think it's just about finding a proper workflow, defining the rules, how often people should be, what the time people should be available. Because if you want to schedule a meeting, for example, at 8 a.m., maybe people are not yet ready for that. At the same time, if you're expecting people to be back from lunch at the same time that usually they do when they go to working from the office, it's also going to be a challenge. Some people working from home, they decide to eat a bit late, and this can be complicated when it's about scheduling meetings or having some calls.
Yeah, there are always some challenges, whether you're in office or working remotely. But yes, I think maybe some ground rules that and structuring things that usually helps everyone. As you said, the workflow, you have to have it structured. There is another thing that I wanted to talk to you, and it has become a norm. Sorry to say this, but so many software engineers I've been talking to have gone through this, and that's a burnout. So it seems to be a big issue in the tech industry. So have you ever encountered this yourself, or someone in your team who did, and how did you address that?
Yes. Before moving to German, burnout was common to me, but to me was like the normal, maybe because of the culture in Brazil. Even though I thought I knew that was not healthy, but to me was normal. One thing that changed my mind regarding of this, after I moved to German, I met the developers and I understood that the mindset is a bit different. They do value like good work balance, and like having like a health mental environment. So even though time to time we still needed to work under pressure to meet tight deadlines, this should not be the normal. And again, I was very used to that in Brazil. And in the first, I don't know, 6 months, I was not getting it right here in German, because I was like, oh, the stress or the pressure, it's not that high. It's something like not going well. I was asking them and said, no, this is normal. And then I think when I got used to this new way of working, I started giving more value to that. and I could like identify and help others to solve these kind of problems when I face it. They are like under this or about to have a burnout. And again, one thing that was very positive at Solytic is that we always gave developers some freedom. For example, if they feel uncomfortable of working because they are like not feeling well, or because they are not like being able to focus and deliver the work, we always give them time to rest and go back in the other day with a fresh mind. And we always saw people like coming back refreshed and more motivated to continue the work. So as team lead, I think one thing that I try to avoid, even though I should be the example, is especially when I like took the ownership of some tasks because I want to reduce the stress or the pressure on the team. I try to not let it disappear as a way of working, you know? So if I see that a developer is going to be overwhelmed with some tasks, maybe I'm going to fix part of the task to me, even though this is going to put more work on my shoulders and I will have to work more time. But I try to sell this to them as, oh, don't worry, you can focus on your tasks. This is not going to put too much on my plate. I can handle it. So I try to not transfer this pressure on my shoulder to them. And I think this kind of worked, I would say.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your honest opinion, but also your own experience in this regard, because it is an issue in the tech industry. But now, let's switch gears a little bit, maybe talk about some more positive things in the software industry. What trends in software development excite you the most right now?
IoT excites me, especially with the potential of 5G to enhance like innovation in this area. When I worked for in an Ericsson project, like in 2018, I saw the potential of it, and I was like, "Oh, this is really going to shape the market and opens a lot of opportunities." Recently, I think I'm spending more time researching about analytics, particular how this could be used to solve some, how can I say, sustainable problems, like helping others to have a better life, and also to give some insights about what could be done differently, you know, because having data, it's something that's very easy today. We are like producing data all the time through our phones, like browsing the internet. So devices are sending data like all the time, but what we do with that? So, and what insights can we get out of it? So I think this is one area that is kind of like dragging more and more attention from my side, especially when I have time to read about and to study. I think I'm driving more into this this area, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the data, and as you said, we are all browsing, internet and doing all sorts of things. You never know where your data is going to end or what people are going to use with with that data. And that brings me to another point: ethical dilemmas, especially with the rise also of AI in today's modern world. So how do you approach issues of privacy, bias, or sustainability in the projects that maybe you are leading?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because transparency and consistent are critical, you know, and customers, they should be fully aware, in my view, about what their data, what data from there are used and the purpose, you know, because there is always a trade-off. For example, when people use Facebook, they are aware that their data is going to be used, but they don't know the extension of it. But they still have the option to not use it. But when they decided to use, it's still this this dilemma about, okay, what is being shared with others? And I think companies should promote this, how can I say, uh, should promote sustainability in this regard, but at the same time, not only about marketing, how can I say, advertising that, oh, we do this, we are proud of being sustainable or proud of like protecting the user data when they actually are not doing that. So I think it should be important that the companies do that and they show transparently to their customers how they are doing that, because this has an impact, especially when it's about the users deciding or not if they want to use the products. And for ensuring that ethics are part of the process, I think the only way it's being transparent with the customers, but also with the employees. Because again, if the company is just caring about what happens outside their working environment, they probably are going to face problems inside. So I think in the end, if you have like a transparent mindset, a transparent policy, everyone knows exactly what they are going to gain in exchange of something, and they can take the decisions. Okay, this is for me or this is not for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very good approach. We already discussed a little bit and touched on, when building a team and hiring, what things you are looking for when building the team itself. But, me coming from this industry, I know that the hiring is a big issue and a big challenge for tech industry in general. So what kind of challenges do you see when you are hiring, and how do you think the companies should overcome these challenges?
Okay. Again, depends on the role. Uh, and but in summary, for short terms needs, for example, hiring specialists who can immediately contribute to the project makes sense, because if you are outsourcing a developer or you have a project that is going to last for, I don't know, 6 months to 1 year, it's all about solving a problem in a short time. So you don't have much time to, how can I say, further developer, employee, and then after 3 to 4 months, he becomes, how can I say, able to solve the problem. So I think you should, in this case, you should focus more on the technical aspects of the role and try to evaluate this, especially, for example, with coding challenge and not relying only in the interviews. But for long-term and complex projects, I again try to prioritize candidates that has a diverse experience in different kind of industries, so they have like an open mindset for problem solving, and they could be that they are not specialists in the stack that are using, but if you identify that they are able to master that stack in a reasonable time, I think for the long term, they are the perfect candidates. Because right now, for example, I'm working only with .NET at Solytic, but before we had to touch different other technologies. And let's imagine that in 2 years, or I don't know, 6 months, we decided to change the technology to use Java, for example, in one specific microservice or for the whole. If I'm not able to, how can I say, mold my skills into this new language and the new framework, then I'm not going to solve the problem that it needs to be solved. So in the past, I always saw language and frameworks as a tool to solve a problem. And then you should pick the best one that's going to provide the best output in the, how can I say, the lowest cost and the lowest time. If the developer says, oh, I only know Java, for example, or I only know .NET and I'm not like up to learn a new language, I think this can be a problem for this kind of projects. And it's fair. Some of them decide I want to be Java specialist, and this is part of their career plan, and it's totally fine. But then they are more suitable to some specific products than others, basically.
Yeah, really like that point. Yeah, open mindset is a key if you want to success in different areas within the tech industry. Someone who comes and brings these skills to the table can be, I think, of benefit to any organization. But as you said, different people have different priorities in life, and that is fine too. Okay, so let's wrap up now a little bit with some fun and relatable topics. What is one common myth about software development that maybe you like to debunk?
Well, one that is interesting is that developers work better alone. So early in my career, I truly believe in that, especially in my first job. Even though the company had another developer there, he was working something completely different. So I had to work alone, take all the decisions. And I saw, oh, it was nice because no one here is about to complain or judge my decisions. In the end, I got the results. But then when I moved to the other company to work with more experienced developers, it changed my mind. I saw that working as a team, you can have better results, definitely. So again, if you have a project, for example, on my GitHub, and I was working alone on that, it was like all my decisions, who wants to use it, go ahead. But when people start, hey, can I contribute to your project? Can I review your project? Then I also saw, oh, there is a different view on it, and it was better than what I thought. So I think this is the most common myth that I have, and I changed my mind about that.
Okay, great. Yeah, great to hear that. And do you have like any maybe unpopular opinions, so to say, about the industry that you firmly stand by?
Well, 2 years ago, I had like a conversation with a coworker at Solytic that I told him, in 10 years, I believe that the career as developer is going to change by a lot, and the demand will decline significantly, because I believe that the way traditional developers are doing their job will be affected by AI tools heavily. And those who decline that will face, how can I say, it's not that they are not going to have jobs. That's not the case, because a lot of companies is still behind of it, is still reluctant of using AI. But imagine like years ago, when to build like a front-end app, you had to have 5 developers like creating crude operations. Now with these AI tools, even though they are still not ready to like enterprise, but they can speed up a lot these smaller tasks. And of course, this reduce the necessity of like having like a large team in the organization. So the consequence is having less open positions, while the amount of developers is still like going high, because I mean we are retiring way later compared to other careers. This is going to affect, for example, the salaries, and the salaries will be less appealing, I would say. And this is going to change a lot how the market sees developers. That's, I would say, something people still don't buy, my opinion, and I agree with their arguments, but I'm trying to, how can I say, prepare myself for this. So when I have time, I try to study more about AI, about analytics, but also about some other topics in other areas to understand, okay, how I as a developer could solve a problem, for example, in the, I don't know, health industry or in the energy industry. So because writing software, I still believe that's the easy part of this whole process. The top is about understanding the requirements, how to solve them, and dealing with people. So that's one thing that it's still some people arguing against my opinion, and some buy that. But let's see, we still have some time until there.
Yeah, maybe in 5-6 years we should have another podcast and see if your predictions were correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and these are going to be a bit more personal. I mean, this was your also personal opinion, but yeah, this is something that I'd like to hear directly from you. So, do you have like any leaders, maybe in the tech industry or outside of tech industry, who have influenced your approach to leadership and general in software industry?
Yes, I do. I mean, there are some like famous people, of course, by their actions. I got some examples, some book writers like that inspired me
Mhm.
to shape my career and also to help me to understand some situations that I was not aware. But I would say that my father has been an inspiring leader to me. Uh, so basically, I could see like very close from the beginning his actions, his decisions, how he was always think about the family, not about himself, and
Mhm.
this kind of shaped my my way to work. I always try to put my team ahead of my own interests because I believe that as a team lead, if I'm not leading no one, my role is useless. So, but when I have like a team that I can trust and they trust me and they see me as an example and we succeed together, this is something that makes me happy, I would say. Uh, Apart from that, of course, I worked with like many developers in my career.
Mhm.
Some of them had like a very, very big influence on my personal growth, not only about in terms of tech, but also in terms of personality. Some of them is still my friends until today. Like I was moving from one company to another, suggesting the HR, hey, try to recruit this person here because he is amazing. I won't name them because otherwise I'll forget someone. But for sure they have some big impact and they know about that. That's the most important.
Yeah, that's really nice. And what a lovely tribute to your father as well.
Yeah,
I think the examples we get in our early childhood are the ones that stay with us and shape us to who we are today. Yeah,
yeah,
really nice
exactly.
that you mentioned your father. Well, now as we wind down, there's a couple of more questions, personal, that
Hmm.
I want to ask you, and this is a big picture question now. So,
Okay.
what do you hope your contribution as a tech leader will be remembered for? Or what would you like your team to remember you for in, let's say, 10, 20 years' time?
Um, Yeah, it's tough because I still see my career in the beginning, even though I already have like 20 years as a developer and I don't know, maybe 15 as lead. Uh, but one thing that I would like to see others following is my way, my, how can I say, my honesty and my transparency when it's about dealing with difficult topics.
Mhm.
Uh, The problem sometimes is that we need to understand that not all companies are a philanthropy company. They need to profit. And of course, we as employee need to do our best to help the company on that matter. Because if you don't, it's fine that the company decides to, how to say, not continue with the employees, or
Yeah.
change the directions. We should not think about, oh, the company is my mother that's giving me like money in the end of the month. No, we are like professionals. We need to do our best in order to be somehow compensated in the future. Like,
Mhm.
and as a team lead, I was always trying to suppress the expectations of the company in order to claim something later. Because if I'm hired to do my job and I just do my job as what expected, even though I improved a little bit over time, which is also expected, I don't feel comfortable of claiming anything because I'm just doing the regular work and
Mhm.
others would do the same or even better. So what I try to transmit to the team is that you should always try to suppress your limits. Of course, having a nice working life balance, because in the end, if you're not rewarded inside the company, you're not going to lose anything. So if you study more, you're going to have more knowledge, and this is for you. If you take care of people, like if you are like polite, if you're nice, you're not going to lose anything, even though if you don't get it back. So I always try to sell to the people that they should do what is correct and what's good, not expecting to receive anything in exchange. But when they try to think about, okay, I'm going to evolve or I'm going to do something because I want to get something back, it's also fine. But they should always think about, okay, if you just mastered a new framework, got a Microsoft certification, for example, or if you worked more, is this going to help the company to grow? It's this going to unlock potential of the company and they can somehow reward you on that? Because if you just do stop because you want, expecting that the company is going to reward us back like immediately, if the company does not have like a financial situation that allows that, it's not going to be sustainable. And then it can even be like this. A developer is like pushing too much toward the company to a better salary because he's receiving offers from different companies. Then what could happen is that the company feels like under pressure because they are dependent on that developer at that time. But could be that the situation changes later, and then it's going to be tough because maybe at the time the company decides to not continue with you, the situation for you is a bit different. The market's not going to be, how can I say, warm as it was before. So I try to be an example for people at work, at home, with my friends, in a way that if they do the same I'm doing, I'll be happy, not sad, you know?
Yeah.
And if something that I do is not okay, I would feel, how can I say, not in a situation to complain if others do the same. So that's something that I always try to do because I have like a phrase that you should do what is correct no matter what. And then, of course, there is going to be some consequence of our actions. But if you do what was correct, then you have peace in mind to say, okay, I did nothing wrong. So it was
Yeah.
the correct decision, even though the outcome to me was not the best. So that's how I see.
Yeah. Really like the last point that you mentioned. Sometimes, yeah, what is correct is not always the popular way to do things, but if it gives us peace of mind, then that is something that we have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And finally, my last
Hmm.
question to you is when I started this podcast, I always had in mind young people who are looking to start their career, or some, young people who are out of secondary school looking to go to university and maybe are considering the software industry as their career. So,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to them? I'm a little bit now scared because of what you mentioned previously that maybe we won't need that many software developers in the future. But
Hmm.
if they are still willing to consider this as their career, what advice would you give them?
Okay. Uh, 10 years ago, I would say that going to university and attend of a bachelor's degree in computer science or something like this would be the best option. But it's not that recently I changed my mind, but looking back to what I saw in the other companies that I worked, I'm pretty sure that at least for me would not be the case anymore. I'll give you two examples. In the first company that I worked, there was a biologist who wrote almost like the entire software of the company using like a very unpopular language, uh, like using Microsoft products. And I asked him how he learned that. He just said, I had a problem. I knew how to solve the problem. I just needed to go after the tools. And then he was like learning like a language, like building the stuff and facing problems. Oh, it's not scaling. It's not like performing. It's buggy. He was like trying to find his way. And he was not like a developer by, how can I say, from the studies. But by nature, he was a developer. He was developing solutions.
Mhm.
Then later in the same company, There was a ophthalmologist doctor who needs to write like a page, like a web page to do some calculations he used to do manually. He knew the formula very well, and he just wanted to put that in an automated way. So he found a way. He learned JavaScript, and then he produced a code that was like good enough and like precise enough to do the calculations for him. And the code was not good, you know, but he was solving a problem. Uh, the question is, if I had to write the same code, I would face a problem that is I knew how to write a proper code, like following some design partners, like using some best practices and frameworks. But how
Mm-hmm.
about the knowledge, the business behind it? I have no idea what was behind.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have to give advice to like young people, would be first learn how to program, learn a programming language. Could be
Mm-hmm.
Python, C Sharp.net, Java. Just pick one that you feel comfortable and try to master it.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like study, I would suggest people to think about what kind of problems we need to solve in the next future, like in the different areas where they feel more like excited to contribute, and
Mm-hmm.
then focus their studies on that area. For example, they could join um, engineering university to learn about, I don't know, math or civil construction or electricity to be an electrical engineer, something like this, or into the health industry to help with the research of some products that can help people to have a better life. But then, if they know how to develop software, they will be able to use AI to produce the output they need. Because at that time, I would say, I don't know, in 5, 10 years, I still believe that AI will be able to produce a lot of stuff, but it needs input. It needs someone to say exactly what it's needed, and especially to validate the output of these tools. And if I'm just a developer who knows, I don't know, 3 to 4 languages, but I know nothing about logistics, about energy, about, I don't know, building houses, how can I ask the questions to these AI tools to help me to produce a software? That's why I would suggest people to think about software and development as a way of solving it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And today we have so many resources in the internet that was different from the time when I started, because
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was like waiting 4 months to get a book about enterprise design partner, and I was reading this book, like taking notes in a paper, like using markers. And if I have to refer to something, I had to go back to the book. If it
Mm-hmm.
was at home, then I had to wait until I get there to be able to read again.
Yeah.
Today you have like all the information in your hand from the smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
like with internet available, and it's easier to become like a developer, like
Mm-hmm.
learning from other experienced people, experimenting a lot, because it's way cheaper than before to write
Yeah.
code and put it to run compared to, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my advice. Again, it can be a bit unpopular. People that are already like in the beginning of in the middle of like a computer science bachelor's degree can think me like, oh, what this guy are telling. It's still that it's valuable, I would say, if you're following this path, but make sure that you're not so focused on like the tech world and the software. Try
Mm-hmm.
to think about outside the box, about the problems that we have and needs to be solved, and try to, how can I say, model or frame your knowledge around these areas. I think it would be the best way to succeed, in my view.
Yeah, I think that is a really fantastic advice that you've given them. Um, Thank you so much, Mario, for first of all being with me today, but also
Sure.
for sharing your valuable insights. It's been an absolute pleasure to have
Yeah, it
you.
was a pleasure.
Yeah, really enjoyed our conversation. And yeah, that's it for today's episode of Solution Seekers. We covered so many things, from leadership values to industry trends, some challenges that we are facing in this industry, but also some personal reflections of yours. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure. And yeah, our audience as well. Hope they enjoyed it. So I just hope they subscribed to our podcast. And also, yeah, if you like it, please give us a like, share your thoughts on the social media. And yeah, thanks again for Mario being here, and for all the audience for tuning in. And we shall see you next time.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye
And
for now.